think that, you know, if their partner is not a great communicator, coming to you would kind of turn them into a great communicator?
Well, let's be honest, knowledge is power when it's applied, right?
Yeah.
So the truth is, all relationships have two driving forces, meaning the individuals in it.
Yeah.
You don't fix people.
Yeah.
Most of the time, where you see imbalance or dysfunction in a relationship, one person was the enabler,
Yeah.
the other person was the predator or predatorial, so to speak. So what we have to look at is, okay, well, first, who is present?
Yeah.
Why do you respond the way you respond? Why do you have the triggers that you have?
Yes.
Where did that come from? In other words, your blind spots. And you know, we use a thing I didn't mention was personality type. I'm one of about 8 people in the world that's an African American that's master credentialed in the MBTI, which is the Myers-Briggs instrument that measures preference and personality type. So when we do that assessment, we can quickly see that introverts typically don't speak up. They expect people to read their minds. Now, this isn't always true, but I'm just saying for the sake of an example.
Yes.
Extroverts, they don't listen, they wait to talk, right? So
Yeah.
just by looking at those dynamics, and again, that's a lot more to that than the example I'm giving.
Yes.
But with that as a premise, we can start with each individual saying, well, you know, part of the reason you don't feel heard is you don't communicate. The reason why you keep running off people is because you're hypervigilant and you are very anxious and you don't understand how that could quickly rub someone the wrong way, or you have a validation need for attention. So you keep trying to garner attention by being over extroverted or being very promiscuous, or you to go from one relationship to another seeking validation, but you don't end the other relationship. So now you're in 3 different relationships, all of them in an ebb and flow that is draining those people as well as yourself because you're dysfunctional as hell. So these are things that we have to look at and not assume that love fixes everything. One thing, especially in the African American community, is we have a perverted relationship with spirituality. People say, well, you know, that's Satan. That ain't Satan. Your ass is crazy. That is not Satan. Or people will not want to own things because they get an approval code when they pull out their American Express card. Well, just because you are successful and you have some paper hanging on your wall doesn't mean that you're intelligent. You may be well educated, but far from intelligent. You may have resources. That doesn't mean you're resourceful. Yeah. Or you may be busy. That doesn't mean you're accomplishing much, right? So we have to move from a false sense of self and start looking at ourselves accurately and owning who we're not. Correct that before we can even assume that there's going to be a healthy, successful, and flourishing integration with somebody else. In other words, if you can't get you together, how in the hell are you going to function well with another person?
Yeah. Yeah. So you would say you kind of tackle that on both ends of that spectrum, which is focusing on the individual and then working gradually towards the couple version of it, right?
Yeah, because in my practice, if you're over 27 years old, you have a child, you're a public figure, you're highly visible.
Yeah.
Or if you go to work and your mistake means you lose your license to practice.
Yeah.
Your mistake means you lose your CDL. Your mistake means now you're sued because of some inappropriate thing you did or said, right? Well, how is that helpful? It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
So you have to work with people individually, at least in my approach to this. Bring them together collectively for the things that bleed off on the other person. In other words, your husband's issues may be triggered by what you do, but they're his issues. Your wife's issues, they may be triggered by what she says or does, by what he says or does, but those are her issues and vice versa. So you have to get the individual to a point of self-actualization before you could ever migrate into something where there's going to be an alignment and values and beliefs and the way that you move forward. Because long as you don't fix yourself, that relationship is doomed.
Yeah. So I guess with that, and that's two different processes that you use for individual clients and of course couples, right?
Well, I work with them individually and collectively.
Okay.
So my programs typically are 8 to 12 weeks long.
Yeah.
If people come to me, the first thing I'm going to tell them is, we're going to get clarity. I'm not trying to keep you together. I'm not trying to break you up. Because a lot of relationships should have never been relationships to begin with. Yeah. People got together because of being territorial. They didn't want nobody else to hit it. Or they now are economically codependent because she doesn't want to give up the lifestyle, or dude, she gave him a car to drive. If she goes, the car goes. You know, those relationships are parasitical at best.
Yeah.
When you really need to get your stuff together individually before you can even consider onboarding with somebody else. So put another way, if you can't stand being alone with you, why in the hell would somebody else want to be alone with you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Like that does. But when you look at it from those terms, like you just explained it, yeah, I mean, once people start getting there, start thinking along those lines, which is start looking for some of that stuff in advance. Like start trying kind of self-reviewing, taking some of those things within yourself. People will start noticing a difference. So even when it comes to like, do you deal with couples, or does your system have any situation where a couple may have like a trust issue or have trust issues? I'm guessing that would be like an individual thing as well, right? Like when couples.
It could be, let me give you a great reflection of that. First, okay, what you're really describing is what is the theme associated with the dysfunction. Yeah. And if the theme is insecurity, if the theme is a power dynamic, if the theme is validation, if the theme is trust, we have to look at, okay, where does that come from? Typically, those things aren't value related. They are things that are rooted in stuff that happened in childhood. Abandonment, being marginalized, being abused. And often the very things that people want to avoid, they attract.
Yeah. And I think, you're right. You're right about that. But I guess it's one of those things, once you're in a relationship and you're with that person, I think most people automatically assume that their partner can help them with their own individual issues to a point, right?
Well, Joshua, that's so good. I'm glad you said that. That is the most, and can I just be blunt? Because I like being real blunt. That is the biggest crock of bullshit, because what really happens is this. If you come to a relationship with someone, and a lot of people do this, thinking that love is going to fix me. Yeah. You know, if I just find the right man, if I just find the right woman, well, you're not right. So how in the hell is that going to work? Because let's say you find the perfect person and you got all these blind spots you haven't addressed. You have these issues that have plagued you. I was doing an interview in New York a few years ago, and this lady calls into the radio station. She says, well, Dr. Young, you know, every man I meet falls in love with me. And right then I knew she was delusional as hell. And I said, so, well, what is your question? Well, I just can't find a good man. And I said, well, how many times have you said men just fell in love with you? And she said, well, the last 4 or 5. And I said, what did they all have in common? They had you in common, right? So it's not always the other person, because 2 things are. 1, you pick these people.
Yes.
Why did you pick people that are so damn needy and clingy? Well, that's because you have a need to be needed. And if someone doesn't need you, you feel like it doesn't work for you. Then when you find out that they need you for your resources, they need you for what you do in the bed, they need you because the way you validate their ego, because you look good in your suit or in your skirt or whatever. Now all of a sudden you have buyer's remorse, because you went into something, jumping into it, looking for validation, where instead of really working on the things that make you vulnerable to making these bad decisions. You see where I'm going with this? So it's very critical that prior to getting in any relationship, that you take the time to explore self, be introspective, ask people that aren't needing $100 or $50 from you and don't want you to pull your drawers off. Ask those people,
Yeah.
if you could point out some things about me I need to work on, what would that be?
Yeah.
And ask a cross section of people. Don't ask your friends, because they're gonna lie to you, depending on whether they just hating on you and they have a passive aggressive relationship, or they think you have this relationship that's built on co-dysfunction and misery loves company type
Yeah.
thing. They're gonna say, well, all women are. You want people to tell you the truth about you,
Yeah.
and be ready to handle that. And at that point, go and engage. If you're going to get a coach, make sure they are ICF credentialed. Because
Yeah.
if they're not, they're probably fake. There are a lot of people out here calling themselves a coach, but real coaches have extensive training. They probably
Mhm.
have a background in sociology, psychology. They should have some advanced degree.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you can look for
Mhm.
is, are they well vetted? Have they look at their TED Talks? How many books have they written or published? They
Yeah.
should have some academic institutional relationship. Like, I'm a fellow at Harvard.
Yeah.
I lecture. My TED Talks, plural. One of them just hit 2.4 million views type thing. So you can, and I'm an expert for several television networks. So when someone is legit, there will be a body of work other
Yeah.
than their opinion and their website that
Yeah.
establishes who and what they are.
Yeah.
And you can ask questions like, well, what's your methodology? What
Mhm.
is your philosophy?
Yeah.
Where did you get your training? How
Yeah.
many, and they, like, if you come in my office and just look at the wall, you could just see, okay, there's some credentials on there, right? And
Yeah.
and that's what you look for, because you don't want someone that's not well vetted.
Yeah. Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. So when individuals or couples seek you out, what is
Hmm.
something that an individual should know or a couple should know before they even consider going to a professional?
First, if they're too cheap, run, because you get what you pay for. That's
Yeah.
number one. This is effective coaching by qualified people is not going to be $30 or $50 for they're not even, you won't even be able to find. Now, somebody just getting started that doesn't have much experience, yeah, you might see that. But if you go to someone that's really seasoned with some real credentials,
Mhm.
expect to pay between $200 to $300 a session. At a minimum 150.
Yeah.
The other thing is, make sure they're a good fit for you.
Yeah.
I don't take everybody. One of the first things that I will tell anyone that comes and tries to on board with me is,
Mhm.
I need to know, okay, well, what's your academic background?
Yeah.
How old are you? What issues are
Mhm.
you presenting? Because if I see you're batshit crazy, I'm not going to take you as a client.
Yeah.
The other side of it is, you're kind of like having a gym membership. You're going to get out what you put in. So
Yeah.
you could be like, well, I got this gym membership. Okay, but you never go. You don't do the work. You're not consistent. So coaching, having a great coach or a clinician is all about a partnership and about accountability, but the level of participation and investment that you're ready to make. And I'm not just talking money, I'm talking time,
Yeah.
being able to humble yourself and be permeable to someone telling you you're wrong,
Mhm.
and having the awareness and the intention to elevate your understanding. And any good clinician, they will more than likely, especially if you come to somebody like me, there's going to be some collateral you're going to have to do. Like, you will probably, if you work with me, by the time we're done, you will have read about 4 to 8 books. And some people haven't read a book in their whole dang life, and others, they read a lot of stuff in college and didn't retain any of it. So
Yeah.
you have to show up properly in order for things to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So two more questions. So
Yes, sir.
what motivates you? Like what you're doing right now, as far as like what you've been doing for years, like what keeps you driving towards that success? Like what keeps you that way?
I'm going to give you three answers. One,
Okay.
all successful people have a routine. Remember that. All successful
Mhm.
people have a routine.
Mhm.
So my routine every day is I work out, about 6 days a week. Um, I'm very spiritual, not religious, but very prayerful, very meditative, very spiritual.
Mhm.
And my quest is to be the best at what I do at a
Mhm.
global level.
Yeah.
I was named the top Black life coach in the world probably 2 or 3 years ago. But what happens is that was a limited space. So now I have the same level of presence in a global coaching community via Harvard and via the ICF and the other things that I'm involved in.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a quest for excellence. It's a quest to empower people so that they can be their best self. Beckwith made a statement once, and he said, vision without effort is fantasy.
Yeah.
Effort without vision is chaos, right? I'm going to take his statement a step further and say vision without purpose is you can't get manifestation. You can be busy, don't mean that you're accomplishing nothing.
Mhm.
So when I do what I do with people, it's in a transformational space, not a transactional space.
Okay. So you're right. Um, but one question comes to mind for me. In order for an individual or a couple to truly achieve the result that they want to achieve through coaching, what must they do? What is that idea that they must have in order to truly achieve what they want to achieve?
That is an excellent question, Joshua. I'm going to say this. Don't go into something wanting to fix the other person. Go into whatever you're going to do with the mindset that I want to be the best version of me that I can be possible, right? It's not about if I do something with someone else that, now if I can just fix you, because I've had a lot of people come in my office and literally say verbatim, man, I need you to fix her. I need you to fix him.
Yeah.
And right then I know we're not a good fit.
Yeah.
Because the truth is you can fix a car, you can't fix a person. You can
Mhm.
increase the capacity, but if you must in all things be that which you seek. When
Yeah.
you become what you seek,
Yeah.
you can find it in someone else, right?
Mhm.
I said at the beginning of this interview, what if you met the perfect person and you still haven't resolved these discrepancies and these points of cognitive dissonance or these places where there's a lack of correlation between what you say and what you do? So if you're going to pursue this, make sure that your quest is clarity, increasing capacity,
Yeah.
and comprehension, and do that with the intent of fortifying your own character.
Yeah.
If you do that, now you have the source material to not only remove some blockage from yourself and stop self-sabotaging what you are aspiring to do, but through having a joint commitment to excellence and a joint commitment to becoming self-actualized, that relationship can be put in a state of flourish instead of a state of failure.
Perfect ending. That's a perfect answer right there. Perfect ending. So, Dr. Young, I want to thank you. Thank you for taking your time out to have this interview with me. Thanks for being a part of the conversation.
Well, thank you, Joshua. I appreciate it. And, and all you're getting, get a good understanding because people perish for a lack of knowledge, right? I read that somewhere, and I think that it holds to be very true with
Mhm.
programming like what you've created and platforms like what you've established here. You make people better one thought, one point of clarity at a time. So I'm grateful to be part of those points of clarity.
Yeah.